Corla, and I'd like to first of all thank Deputy Brune and his colleagues for tabling this motion. But I suppose it's giving us an opportunity to again talk about homelessness, but without seeing any real progress from the government side in terms of addressing it in the really kind of substantial way that we need to see. The Minister was out this morning talking about, how the social housing delivery figures for 2018 were good news and talking them up. But really, the changes are very minimal and they're going nowhere near the kind of numbers that we need, that the government itself has accepted that we need in order to address the housing crisis. So there just doesn't seem to be any significant change in policy. For example, to use the state land, most of it owned by local authorities, that is available. And recently, again, housing experts like Mel Reynolds have said that there is enough local authority owned, zoned for housing land to build 30,000 units of accommodation in the Dublin region and 50,000 in the state as a whole. So that is the solution. The solution is to actually build on the land that the state owns, to build social and affordable housing for the people who currently need it. But that just doesn't seem to be the solution that government is pursuing. And looking at the delivery figures that were published today, the main significant increase is actually in HAP again, which was never meant to be a substitute for the construction of social housing. It's gone up now to 17,926 in 2018, whereas the build is actually less than the target. It's gone up from 2297 in 2017 to 4251 in 2018, but the actual target was 4409 for 2018. So that hasn't reached its target. And in the meantime, we have nearly 4,000 children living in homeless accommodation. And we really have to focus on those children. I know a family with 2 young children, both in primary school, who are almost a year now living in hotels. And there are many, many other families like that. And I know that, for example, the Ombudsman for Children's Office is doing some serious research now on the effects on children because of the number of cases that have come to their attention of being in homelessness for long periods of time. And they are serious and life-altering effects on young children. And we just can't leave them in that situation when we do have solutions. And I agree with Deputy Curran about the rapid build. The rapid build was supposed to deliver what it says on the tin, rapid build, but it seems to have been abandoned. There's no evidence whatsoever that it is producing homes at a quicker rate. And, that is one of the failures of Housing First. There are many others. I agree also with Deputy O'Brien in relation to the traveller accommodation. The outcome for last year means that less than half of the money allocated was spent. That is an indictment on policy implementation. I think the policy is there, but the implementation isn't. And that just simply has to be about communication between the department and the local authorities and ensuring that if it can't be spent in the way that was identified at the beginning of the year, then it should be spent in other ways, because we all know travellers living in appalling conditions whose circumstances could be improved if that money was spent. And I know the Minister has said that, well, there are objections and there are various problems. But, I mean, if you can't spend it one way, you can spend it another way. That money should be spent. And any objections that are there should simply be, should not be taken as seriously as they apparently are. And we need to get on with improving the lives of traveller children in particular. I want to, in the time that I've left, I want to particularly look at the data that was presented to us and the Minister's statement this morning. And he basically talked about improvements of, for example, 8 times more social housing units delivered in 2018 as compared to 2015. And he also talked about improvements from last year. But the telling little piece in the statement is excluding voids. And for the first time, as far as I know, and maybe Minister English will correct me, but voids are not being counted. And the voids, in fact, went down from 2017 output of 1757 down to 560, and that was the target. But that is what's in the that's what's in the figures.
Voids brought back in, just as a point of information in the last year.
Well,
I'll go into more detail.
Well, if they're voids, they should fill the definition of voids.
Just to be clear.
Well,
there was a desire not to count them by yourselves. So
if I'm not on the committee, but either way,
it's hard to win with this.
Back in 2014, there were 2,333 voids, and what voids are obviously is local authority houses that have been boarded up for a long time with nobody living in them. So they're houses brought back into use for families. In 2014, it was 2,333. In 2015, it was 2,829, which is the figure that this 8 times increase is based on that particular year. 2016 was 2,308. 2017 was 1,757. 2018 is 560. Now, I know for a fact that there are a lot of empty local authority houses sitting in my council area that could provide homes for people, and they're sitting there empty. And whatever the reason is, I think they should be counted, first of all. But and whatever the Minister English is going to explain to me why they're not counted. But either way, they should not be left empty. And if that means the department getting together with local authorities and deciding that specific money has to be allocated to bring those homes back into use, they should be brought back into use. They're empty council houses owned by the council with 100,000 people on council lists. Well, if there's money allocated to them, then it's your job, Minister, to make sure that money is spent. But I mean, these are figures in black and white in front of me, delivered by the department, which show that last year there were 560 voids in the stats, whereas in the figure that the Minister is comparing and saying there's been so much progress made since 2015, there were 2,829. Now, if those figures were added in, then you would not see the kind of figures that are being boasted about by the Minister today. So that's, I think that is an area that really and truly we can quickly bring back homes back into use, and I would urge the Minister to do that. There are many other things. I absolutely support Housing First, and I do believe that it needs to be developed, and I would fully support whatever action is taken on that. But it's not just in Dublin either. I mean, Housing First can be a solution to many people who have been in long-term homelessness right throughout the country, particularly in our cities, and that does need to be resourced, and it needs to be developed. But I realise my time is almost up, and there's always so much more we can say on this issue. But I think it's not really about talking, it's about delivering. And we need to see this serious situation actually addressed in a way that isn't just this incremental, slight changes from one year to another, because we're not going to deal with it if that doesn't happen.